Alright, welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to show you two things. One is basically creating a picker view without using main storyboard. Two, I'm going to also show you how to set up multiple components. So not just one component for your picker view, but two or three or four, depending on what you want to do with it. So let's go ahead and get started. First, let's go ahead and open up a new project. I've already opened mine. The layout the way I like. We're going to enter in some properties here. So first of all, we need a picker view because I'm not dragging this in. I'm not messing with main storyboard. And just to prove it to you, I'm not in storyboard at all. It's completely empty. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create some arrays to hold my data because I don't want my users to actually enter anything. They just select what they need to select and go from there. So in my mind, I think I'm going to do something like enter in, like if you go running, say the number of kilometers that you plan on running that day. And then adding a decimal point and say if it's 0.5 or 0.6 or whatever. And then I'm going to do a resultant string, like the result, so that we can display it in a label. I'm going to bring it in a label and also set that up in code. And then some components. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing I need to do is go ahead and set up my arrays to hold my data. So the first thing I'm going to do is decimals, because I'm going to actually have all of three of my components actually reference this particular array because they all will contain the numbers. So let's go ahead and enter those in now. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to 9. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to also create another array or a decimal separator. So I'm going to do I'm not going to do two separations because who knows, maybe they plan on using this for I know some countries use a comma and others use a period. So I'm going to do both. And then I'm going to basically just create just an open result string. So just to hold my results. I'm just going to initialize it with a blank thing. Then the next thing I'm going to do is basically a component string. So it's just going to be an empty array already ready to go. All right. So now I'm going to set up my picker view and my label. All right, so I'm not making them not optional because they will appear. Then I need to also add the classes to bring for my protocols for my picker view. Okay, so we have that done. We also have a wonderful warning that we don't have the protocol. So if you did what I did, and you have already saved up your picker view setup code, this is very basic. Let's go ahead and drag that in. All right. And that will silence the error up here. All right, so the next thing I need to do is I need to set up my picker view in code. So I'm actually going to go into view did load, and underneath super view did load, let's go ahead and do the setup. So the first thing I need to do is I need to initialize my picker view. Then I need to set the size, the delegate, and the data source. In order to set the size, I need to do my picker view dot frame. So I need to set its frame because I'm not actually drawing it on the storyboard. So I'm going to use cgrect, which is a structure that contains a location in the dimensions of a rectangle. And that's what a picker view is it is a rectangle. Now the only thing we need to actually really set is the location. So where does it appear on the view? So I'm going to have it set at 0. So X, sorry. Let's go ahead and get that to completely come out. So it's going to be a CG float. Basically X and Y on the coordinate system on the phone. 0, 0, so X being 0 and Y being 0 is the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to do 0, 0. The width, I'm actually going to pull from the actual device. I'm going to say self-view bounds width. Now the height, I'm just going to use a regular CG float. This is a very typical height for picker view, just a generic picker view that you pull actually into the view if you had actually done it in main storyboard. All right, so let's go ahead and set the delegate and the data source. All right, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to set up my label. So you get 2 in 1 with this video. All right, so my label view set up. So basically the same thing with my label view. Basically I have to set the frame. So actually I'm going to change my label to time label. So time label. I'm going to do frame like we did above. I'm doing CG rect. Now this, I'm going to still have X be 0, but Y, since we have the picker view at the top, I want it to be below. So let's do 300. So it's below the height of the actual frame for my picker view. The width is going to be, let's say, same thing with the width. We're going to have it just stretch all the way across, so we're just going to get the width from the actual device. Or the view. And the height, very typical height for label is 20. Then I need to also set the color of the text. And it's going to be black. All right, so the final thing I need to do is, since we're doing this programmatically, we actually have to add it to the view. So we're going to do add to view, self view, add subview. So if you're wondering what this is, it basically adds a view to the end of the receiver's list of subviews. So we're going to add our picker view and also the label. All right, to make sure that, now you could also add the color for the background for the view, but I'm going to do it within storyboard just to give you an idea of, or give you the, to show you that I did not at all change anything. So I'm going to make this really dark or kind of bright blue. Let's go back to the main, our view controller. Let's save it and build. Oh no, it generated issues. Okay, so generate issues because we have a bunch of things that are empty here. So let's do number components. 1 for right now. It has to return a string. I'm going to do 1 right now. Okay, so after putting in some dummy text in there, so if you had the same issue I did, just make sure you just enter in some random things just to make it happy. So right now all we're doing is we're testing to see if the changes that we made actually worked. So actually adding the picker view and the label actually worked. Okay, so this issue here is because what I should have done is I should have initialized this table view or this time label as well. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, let's build and try this again. All right, so we do see we have our picker view, but we don't have our label. That's mainly because our label doesn't have any text in it, but if we did add, let's say we said time label text equals, oh, I don't know, let's just do something like that. All right, so we see it's right here. It isn't very clean, so let's go ahead and do some work on that as well. Let's do text alignment. Let's do center. Let's try this again. All right, so here is our label and here is our picker. As you can see, it is definitely a picker there. All right, let's go ahead and stop. All right, so the next thing we need to do is just basically the setup for the components. So we have added everything here, so let's go ahead and remove that. So basically what we need is the number of components or the number of columns. So I want basically 2 digits, so the ones and tens, a decimal point, and then a decimal at the end. So I basically want 4 columns. And then for number of rows in the column, for each component, we have to reference the correct array. So how we can do that, we basically use a switch statement. So you're going to switch on the component. Okay. We have 4 cases. So one, we have the first, second, third, and fourth row. So we're going to switch on numbers. So case 0, which is the first component, we will need to return the decimal digit count. So I'm referencing this array up here. For the second row, same thing. And then for the third row, I'm actually going to reference the decimal point or comma. So decimal separator, and then have that count. And then the last one is, again, the decimal digit. And then always add a default just in case something horribly fails. I doubt that it will, but you never know. And I'll just have it return 0. And we can remove our placeholder here. Everything should be fine. And as we see, this switch must be exhaustive because it was waiting for the default. Okay, so we've set up the components and the counts. The second part we need to do is the title for each. And this is kind of the same thing. We're also going to do another switch statement. So let's remove this and do a switch. And again, we're going to use component here. So for case 0, which is the first component or the first row, we're going to return the decimal digit, and then we're going to pull out the number at that element, so for the row. And again, same thing. And then here, I'm going to actually do the decimal separator. And last but not least, our last row, and then our default. In case all else fails, we're going to have it return nil, because as you see here, we can return an optional string. Okay, so the final thing we need to do is we need to implement what happens after we're finished pulling out the picker view. I'm going to create some space here so we can see and work. All right, so I'm going to delete everything here. And again, you know, my dummy text that I put in there, the snippets that I put in there, I don't necessarily have to use them, but if you need to, and it's basically just kind of a notes to myself, notes to you, however you might use it, to do some work in there and what kind of work you need to do in here. So in picker view, did select row, we also have component as well. So let's do some work in here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that our time label text always looks at the correct row and outputs the correct row. And even if we do change, like say, one particular component, whether it's the first one or the second one or the last one, it needs to automatically update. So let's do another switch statement. Again, this is a lot of switching, but this is how you do it. So I have some cases as well. So I know for a fact that case 1, 0 or 1, the first, second, and fourth case always use decimal digit. So I'm going to do 0, 1, and 3 needs to do work. Okay, and then my third case, which is 2, always pulls out from the decimal operator. And then my default, just in case all else fails, is I'm just going to do result string or results equals, hey, nothing was chosen. And then what I wanted to do, no matter what, I want it to update my label. Okay, so for here, I can actually do things in here, but the thing is I actually need to create another action here that will actually update the result every time, because it's just easier than repeating the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to do add updated selection to result. So this is actually going to add things to my variable result. And what it's going to take is, one, it's going to take the input, which is going to be the string. And the second thing it's going to take is the component. Because I'm going to be using this, this particular function inside of my picker view up here. So it's going to know the component, and it's also going to know what the input is from row, because I'm going to use row and we're also going to use component. And I'm not going to do an output statement because I'm going to be actually updating the results variable. So I need to reset the results if it has any thing in its text, or if it's set to something, I want to remove it. And then I'm going to do component string, And so my component string up here, so basically my component string has 4 empty elements. So depending on what the element is, so what component it is, that's where it's going to put the value. And so if it's the first one, it's going to say, okay, this is a first component, and the value at the first component is the input. So we'll pull from the, we'll input it into the component string placeholder. That's what I should say. Okay. And so what I need to do is I want this to keep doing this constantly. So I'm going to do a for loop. And I want it to start from the beginning and go, or actually I want it to count through, so go through the whole entire component string and count. So it's actually 4, but who knows, it could be something else. It could be 5 or 6 or 7, but I just really want a very generic thing. So in case I increase it to, you know, having 5 components, you know, I can still use this no matter what. So I'm going to do results equals results plus the component string at that particular, for I. So whether it's the first, second, or third. Okay. So we have that done. So let's go ahead and fix these errors up here. They're not really necessarily errors, I just didn't finish the work. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do my add updated selection to result. The input is the decimal digit at a particular row. And the component is the component, which is going to be 0 or 1 or 3. So that's why I'm using component. And then for my second one, or the actual decimal separator, I'm going to do the same thing, add selection to result. This one is going to be the decimal separator at a particular row, because I have 2 values in there right now. And the component is 2, but I'm going to just do component. Again, this is always, you know, you always change it up, and if you do change it up, you don't necessarily want to have to rewrite everything or hard code anything. Okay, so we have that set up. All right, let's go ahead and save our work and build. And run. Okay, so we have our first component here. Oh my gosh, it works. Oh, so you got 0, 2, 2, 2, and 1. Oh no! So something happened with my last one. For some reason, it's not showing. So let's take a look at what happened. Okay, so make sure you have your cases correct. I forgot to do 3 here. All right, let's try this again. This time it should work. All right, we have all of our values here. So let's go ahead and select some. All right, and say if I want to update one, and it updates it to 5, or if I want to do 75, or I want to use a comma. There we go. So now we have it updated. You know, there may be cleaner, easier ways of doing this. Definitely play around with it. This is just kind of a basic introduction to it, and I hope that it has helped you. If it has, just give the video a thumbs up. Feel free to, if you find any of my videos helpful at all and you want to support me and my channel and my work, please become a patron or hit me up at Vimeo, where I will have additional content, more extensive tutorials, and little tidbits. Again, friends, thank you again. Keep calm and code on.